New fist bumps are awkward. When my team does really well, high fives don't land the same. When I try and comfort my sister, it's kind of strange and maybe not quite as comforting as we had hoped. That thing I cared about, love, connection, relationships, courage, it's stuck too. I'm keeping that promise to myself. But at what cost? I can't move forward. Can't fist bump. I can't share. I can't play. I can't be free. But if I loosen my grip, even just a little bit, just a little, suddenly I'm free. And that beautiful part of me that wants to bounce, to explore, to live, is free. We all make promises. Some of them are good, like promising to work hard on something when you're on a team together, or promising to be kind, promising to live into our hope of a better world and to do the things that might make that world a better place. And some of us, kids, adults, carrying a jar around in our lives like this, and the promises we make to protect ourselves end up trapping us instead. But maybe, just maybe, there is a time that we can ask ourselves, is this promise still helping me? Or is it holding me back from the thing that I really value? Can I loosen my grip just a little bit and let something beautiful move in me again? So as we go through the service today, I invite you to notice what you're holding on to. What are you holding on to? Is your hand stuck in a jar? And whether it might be time to let go and to bring back some of those things that make you feel more free. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I appreciate it. May it be so.
I like that it stayed out of the jar. Each week, do you have me on the lectern, Joe? Yes, you've got me. Thank you. Each week, we take an offering for an organization in our neighborhood that is living out our values in ways that we can't do alone. And one of those partners that we have on a regular basis is Noble Neighbors, or Green Noble. They do a lot of community building projects that are also about environmental justice. And one of the projects that they have been working on, they've done one bumblebee garden for a local school, and they would like to do some more. And they have people willing to do the work, and they have young people that are really excited about learning. And these are amazing opportunities for us to connect our values in spaces that we don't normally get to access. So by partnering with Green Noble, we're hoping to create more bumblebee gardens in that neighborhood, in the schools, so that the children have a place to learn together and to be in partnership, in healthy relationship with our environment. Your support makes that possible, so I hope that you will give generously and within your means today. Oh, I'm supposed to tell you that you can put a check or cash in the offering plate, but if you want to give electronically, you can use CashApp, And our Cash App handle is in the order of service, but it's $UUCC44122. Thank you.
More than a century ago, Danish theologian and philosopher Søren Kierkegaard wrote a parable that captures our predicament and our opportunity very poignantly. I'll share that with you today. A certain flock of geese lived together in a barnyard with high walls around it, because the corn was good and the barnyard was secure. These geese would never take a risk. One day, a philosopher goose came among them. They were a very good philosopher, and every week they listened quietly and attentively to their learned discourses. "My fellow travelers on the way of life," they would say, "can you seriously imagine that this barnyard with great high walls around it is all there is to existence? I tell you, there is another and a greater world outside, a world of which we are only dimly aware. Our forefathers knew of this outside world, for did they not stretch their wings and fly across the trackless wastes of desert and ocean, of green valley and wooded hill? But alas, here we remain in this barnyard, our wings folded and tucked into our sides, as we are content to puddle in the mud, never lifting our eyes to the heavens, which should be our home." The geese thought this was very fine lecturing. How poetical, they thought. How profoundly existential. What a flawless summary of the mystery of existence. Often the philosopher spoke of the advantage of flight, calling on the geese to be what they were. After all, they had wings, he pointed out. What were wings for but to fly with? Often they reflected on the beauty and the wonder of life outside of the barnyard and the freedom of the skies. And every week, the geese were uplifted, inspired, moved by the philosopher's message. They hung on their every word. They devoted hours, weeks, and months to a thoroughgoing analysis and critical evaluation of their doctrines. They produced learned treatises on the ethical and spiritual implications of flight. All this they did, but one thing they never did: they did not fly, for the corn was good and the barnyard was secure.
We've been talking a bit this summer about bridging the gap between current reality and a vision of shalom, a vision of wholeness, of being a full embodiment of our values. And we're spending a bit of time talking about current reality and how we got there, because it's difficult to build a bridge in a new direction if we don't know what we're building from. And there are some things about current reality that keep us stuck, that keep us from flying. And so we're going to talk a little bit about one of those things today. And I know some of you are already distracted by the colorful handout that you have, the insert. We'll get to that. Don't get too distracted yet. We're going to hold on to that for a few weeks. But maybe you're thinking right now, I appreciate the little jar illustration, Jenni, but I didn't never really made any promises like that. I never really thought I needed to protect anything. That was not a thing that I did as a human being. I don't believe you. But also, if you think about a recent time when you felt disconnected from people, or like you needed to disconnect from people, or a recent time when you got defensive about something, you might have an access point to one of those promises that you made. Because when we get defensive about something, or when we feel like we need to disconnect from people, it's usually because we feel some sense of threat. Something feels threatened in that moment. So when we ask ourselves, what is it that I feel like I need to protect? What feels threatened right now? A lot of times, it's going to feel like a very familiar thing, because we wind up feeling threatened by and trying to protect the same kinds of things over and over and over in our lives. And most of the time in my life, when I feel like I need to disconnect or I feel like I need to protect something, it is not physical safety that I'm concerned about. I'm trying to protect my sense of pride, or I'm trying to protect my opinion about something from getting attacked, or I'm trying to protect something that doesn't really have a physical location on my body. It winds up physically presenting in different ways. We hold a lot of things in our bodies, but a lot of the things that I have made a promise to protect are things that I can't touch. And we all have things that activate us in our lives. If we think back, we probably don't have to think very far to think about a time when we got stirred up about something. You know what I mean by activated. We get a little anxious. Our voice gets a little, our shoulders raise a little. We have a response to things that's kind of automatic. We don't even think about, I need to raise my voice right now and get a little bigger and talk to this person in a really aggressive way. We don't really walk through that in our minds. We just do it automatically. That's because we made a promise at some point to ourselves about how we would respond when we feel threatened. Not when we were really conscious of it. Not we sat down and wrote out a thing and said, I think this is the best way to be. But before we were really able to reason our way through things, we had an experience that we made meaning of, and we made a promise to ourselves. And honestly, this comes because of a very human thing. We all have needs. We are human beings, and so we have needs. That's just a part of being human. I know it sucks, but we have needs. We have physical needs. We need water. We need food. We need shelter. We also have emotional needs. We need approval. We need love. We need a sense of belonging. We need protection and safety. Those things were present when we were born, and they continue throughout our whole lives. We need things from other people. And because we live in an imperfect world, we can all point to some time when those needs were not met, when we needed a sense of safety and we felt betrayed, when we needed something, we needed some approval, and that approval didn't come in the way that we wanted. We were shaped by those experiences, and we're being shaped by them still. Some of us are in our first formation at this moment, and some of us can think back to our first formation where something happened. We experienced something. Our needs weren't met, and we felt hurt or unloved or unsafe. So I know for some of you that are really highly sensitive imaginers, this might be a painful thing, and I'm aware of that. I'm going to say it anyway. But imagine all the times that you felt rejected or abandoned, all of the times when you weren't chosen, when you were laughed at or yelled at, or were overprotected. And imagine in each of those moments that somebody stuck you with a knife. Because that is really close to how our brains interpret that kind of wounding. As a knife wound is to the physical body, so an emotional wound is to the psyche. And just like physical pain activates neurons in our brain, emotional pain does the same thing. When I talk to people about experiences where they felt threatened by somebody, and they said, this person was yelling at me, and it was really scary. And I say, yeah, but it wasn't like they were coming at you with a butcher knife, right? You weren't physically threatened. And they say, yeah, it was like they were coming at me with a butcher knife. I'm like, wait, really? They were holding a butcher knife? No. But them yelling at me felt like they were coming at me with a butcher knife. Yeah, that's what our brains do. Our brains don't differentiate. The same chemical reaction happens when somebody is yelling at us and it feels scary, or when somebody is physically threatening us. So when we don't feel safe, we decide, whenever that was, whatever that first time was when we didn't feel safe, we decide that we're going to protect ourselves because survival matters. We don't decide rationally, but we just make a promise to ourselves, this is what I have to do. When physical wounds happen, we know about first aid. When we get hurt physically, we know to treat the wound. But when emotional wounds happen, for some reason in our society, we decide that we're supposed to put on this mask that says, I'm fine, I don't need anything, everything's all right here, no attention needed, and we're taught to pretend that those wounds don't even exist, or that they shouldn't feel like wounds. Neurochemistry aside. So over time, this results in you not being you. It winds up with us developing what some people call a false self. And a false self is there to protect us. It's the jar. The false self is there to keep us safe. But it's really hard to live into our values completely when we're worried about keeping ourselves safe. We get stuck in that protectiveness. It's hard to think about, how do I be in a state of interdependence with people when I'm most worried about, how do I keep you from really seeing me? So we all had, thank you, we all had experiences as children and as adults when we were wounded. But when we were kids, we don't really have the same framework for things. So we make up a set of beliefs. We make up a set of assumptions about how the world has to work or about ourselves. And the meaning that we make becomes our reality because it feels absolutely true. Even though different people can have the same experience, they can make different meaning out of that experience, and it's going to feel absolutely true to each of us, whatever that meaning is that we make. And the meanings that we make about ourselves are often not terribly helpful. They're things like, I'm not enough just as I am, or I'm not worthy of love. I have to earn love. Or we make up a meaning that authority figures can't be trusted, or that people aren't going to take my needs seriously, or maybe just that my needs aren't important. Maybe I'm not important, or it's not safe to take risks, or at my core, I'm just a burden on the people around me, or I have to be perfect to be acceptable. I don't know if any of this is sounding like anything you've said to yourself. Thank you for that hand. But maybe there's something similar that you have said in your mind. It's usually a really simple thing because we start saying it when we're really, really young. But we make that meaning and we find evidence for it over and over and over and over and over again in our lives. And when we're looking for that evidence, we can find it. So from the meaning that we make, whatever it is, we make a protective promise. We put our hands in that jar, and we say, therefore, this is how I have to be. If I'm not important, then here's how I have to show up in the world to get my needs met. If authority figures can't be trusted, then this is how I need to be in order to make sure I'm not hurt. A protective promise is a decision that we make about how we have to show up, and it becomes our autopilot. We talked about autopilot a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was last week. I don't know. I talk about this stuff a lot. It becomes our autopilot, just our way of doing. We don't think about it every morning. We just show up that way because it becomes our habit. It's like a sacred vow that we've made, and we hold on to it. So protective promises are usually really absolute statements like, I will never, or I must always, or just I am, whatever it happens to be. And we do this in groups too. I think maybe back in our Unitarian side of our parentage, we were called heretics. And other people had some theological concerns about some things that Unitarians were saying back in the day, and that can be pretty painful. But we're adults and we can handle somebody calling us a heretic because we can make a promise that we're going to be intellectually superior and defend our theologies. We will debate our theologies to the point where you are convinced, and that's going to be the way that we protect ourselves from this accusation of being heretics, because we know we're right. That's a protective promise. We made it as like a group of people. Maybe there's something in our universalist side too, where we were really, really concerned about being open and welcoming to everyone, And so we made this expansive sense of you can believe anything you want and be a Unitarian Universalist. I've heard that before. You can believe anything you want. It's okay. And it's true, we have lots and lots of different theologies in this room. But sometimes we fail to set boundaries because we've made a promise about what it means to be welcoming and open. And our values, there's some boundaries there. A covenant is just a set of boundaries. And so it's important for us to be able to name, yes, we have an expansive set of theologies that are welcome in this space. And also, if you believe something that is oppressive to other people, that's not really going to be at home with our values. There's a limit. And as individuals, we do this too. So I've been doing this work for a while. The first protective promise that I was able to identify for myself when I started doing this work was that I must never appear lazy. I must never look lazy, because if people think I'm lazy, then I'm going to lose respect and I'm going to suffer humiliation. Now, I know that's a promise that I made. It still crops up from time to time, but I recognize it now. And the more I recognize it, the more I can say, oh, hang on a second, that's not what I want to live into. I want to do something different. There are people who alert me to it sometimes. The first year I was here, there was a parishioner that said, I'm really impressed by how industrious you are. And I thought, oh no, I'm doing that busyness thing again. I'm looking busy. And that promise was based on a couple of things that are lies. It was based on some lies about me and lies about other people and lies about what it means to be human. But one of those lies was, well, it was really a fear that at the core of my being, I was just lazy. And if I was unproductive, then I was a bad person. Nobody sat me down in my first formation and said, Randy, you need to look busy all the time, because if you are unproductive, you are going to hell. Nobody said that. They said I was going to hell about other things, but they didn't say it about that. But from whatever lessons I got in the world around me, I made that meaning. If I'm lazy, I'm a bad person. I must always look like a good person. Now, I don't believe those things anymore, but that habit is still in there. It still crops up. I know that rest is an essential and healthy part of showing up the way that I want to in my relationships. I know that increasing my ability to value times of stillness is a way that I become more connected with my inner wisdom and more connected with the world around me. And I know that allowing my body the time that it needs, my mind, my spirit, the downtime that they need, can lead to growth for myself and other people. For a long time, though, I was enslaved to that protective promise, and it limited me in a lot of ways. You can imagine how. I have a couple of things here, but I'm going to just cut those out, because you know in your head how that might limit a person to be busy all the time. When I'm reacting out of that promise, it's hard to be the embodiment of liberating love. When I'm reacting out of a promise to myself to never look lazy, it's hard to think about interdependence. It's easy to think about justice, I'll tell you that. We love people who are overfunctioners in UU churches because we can never be bored when we think about the need for justice in this world. But we also can't serve from an empty cup. So I was stuck when I was holding on to that promise. And I think everyone is probably bound up by a lot of those protective promises. So it takes a reflective life, that piece of those, through three little pieces of that mental model that we're working on for these a few months. A reflective life helps us become more aware of those protective promises and how they're affecting our lives. And we can start from a lot of different places. But we need to be aware of them so that we can, are you ready, Unitarian Universalists? So that we can repent. So that we can repent. Jesus said over and over and over again, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. The kingdom of heaven is right here, and you're missing it. So he encouraged people to repent, which did not mean what I got taught that it meant. It doesn't mean that to me anymore. It means to turn, to change direction. Change direction. Don't live into this jar. Don't live into this protective promise, because that is not going to get you where you want to go. That is not going to get you where your values are calling you. Change course, change direction. So we're going to talk in a couple of weeks about the kinds of affirming things that we can acknowledge about our values and where they are guiding us. But the work for the moment is to think about those things that are obstacles in our way, to think about those things that we might want to let go of. And if you're watching this online, then I'll just let you know this is preparation for our water ceremony. We're leading up to it. Water ceremony and ingathering is going to happen in September. It's not even August yet, and we're getting ready. So this is work in this little chart that you have in it as an insert. You've got it in the online order of service as well. But this is something that you can work on over time. This is not take it home this afternoon and fill out all the chart. That's not what this is. It did not take me a few hours to uncover this protective promise that I had about never looking lazy. That took weeks and months. And I keep uncovering more the more work that I do. So this is not short-term work. This is an invitation into a longer journey. But that chart has a lot of different pieces to it, and you might start in different places. There might be a moment when you realize, I am being disconnected from the people that I care about. What is that about? And you start at that little point on the chart of the effect that something is having on the relationships or the world around you. Or maybe you remember a time in your childhood where you were getting ready to go somewhere as a family, and you had to go back into the house and get your jacket, and your mom said, come on, we're going to be late. And you thought, oh no, it's my fault. I'm holding everybody back. And you just carried that with you through your life. It's weird, the things that we make meaning of and carry with us through our lives. But maybe you remember one of those things today, and you start at that point and you say, how am I doing that today? How am I keeping that jar on my hand today that I put on when I was 6 years old? It's amazing the things that we can discover. There's no shame in any of this. We want to bring this stuff into our awareness so that we can change direction, so that we can get our hands out of the jar, so that we can live into deeper connection with the people around us and a more full expression of our values. That's the reason that we do this work. So be gentle with yourself. Give yourself time. Give yourself space for reflection. And start in a place that makes sense to you, if you're willing, on this chart, to start filling in some things that you can come back to over and over again and fill in a little more and reflect a little more. And recognize that you have probably believed something about yourself that just is not true. You have probably believed something about yourself that just is not true. There is an opportunity for liberation in this that many people never experience in their lives. Being willing to name the truth about our inherent worthiness is a big spiritual journey. So that is the invitation today, beloveds. It's a big invitation. May we engage it with courage and faith and connection, because we're going to need one another on this journey too. And we do this because we are wanting to build a world of greater justice and wholeness. We do this work for ourselves because it has an impact on the world around us. And so to remind us of that, I invite you to rise, embody your spirit as we sing together. We are building a new way. It's number 1017 in the teal hymnal. And again, rise, embody your spirit as we sing together. Thanks. I almost thought we were going to go into another verse, and I didn't know what it was. I have a couple of important announcements, and some of this is just a preemptive alert about some things that are going to change in our space, because we're going to try something. We've been talking for a few years about how to be more engaging to some of our younger worship participants, and we're going to be making some changes up here to the space. There's still going to be space for folks on wheels and folks that have some accessibility issues or needs. That's going to be here. But in the front of this space up here, we're going to have a we worship space, W-E-E, we worship. And so it's going to be a little different. It's going to be a little different energy. We're hopeful that people will engage with that in an open and accepting way. Parents do not have to sit in the we worship space, but we hope we'll have some other adults. And I just want to name a thing that Jenni and I recognized this week. Sometimes we think of our religious education program as being a thing that parents volunteer to make happen. 6 of our board members are parents. They have families. They are already doing a lot for this congregation because they're serving on the board. One of the ways that you can support the board is by volunteering in our RE spaces to care for the young people that are part of our community. It really does take a village. All of the research that is out there shows that young people thrive when they have 3 to 5 meaningful adult relationships outside of their families. You can be that. So if you have been a little resistant, or you have a mental model in your head that says, oh, parents are the volunteers for our RE spaces, I ask you to get your hand out of that jar, because there is an amazing opportunity awaiting you when you engage with young people who are forming their faith in a new way, because it gives you an opportunity not only to be in relationship with people that you might not be in relationship with otherwise, but to examine your own faith and to examine the things that you have been taking for granted and to grow your own sense of spiritual well-being. So that is what is on offer. Please reach out to Jenni if you've been hesitating or if you have not even been thinking about it. Please reach out to Jenni and let them know that you're in. If you are a parent and you want to learn more about what this whole we worship thing is going to be about, Jenni is going to have a conversation today in the craft room after worship. Childcare is still available during that time if you would like to attend that. And Jenni's going to do this next week as well for any parents that are curious about what we're going to do with the space and how that's going to work. Probably mid-August is when you're going to see that. So it's going to be a few weeks. We'll keep talking about it. August 10th, we're going to be outside, hopefully, if weather permits. We're going to be outside. We're going to have all of our non-human animal household members and companions for an animal blessing service outside. And then next week is going to be an amazing service here led by a panel of folks from our Greater Cleveland Congregation's core team, talking about putting our values into action and what spiritual practices look like in the larger world. So all of that is coming up. I think that's everything. Did I miss something from you? No. Okay. Then I leave you with these words from Dr. Evelyn. Every spoken sentence beginning with I am is a powerful spell exhaled into action. Describe yourself wisely, and I might say compassionately. Go with peace and courage. And we'll extinguish our chalice with the words found on the yellow pew card. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community. If you are visiting with us today or you just have never realized it, there's coffee downstairs. You may not want coffee, but there will also be some fabulous people down there in the fellowship hall if you want to visit for a while, so you're welcome.